So good morning to all attendees of our first session of the last third day of this year's PubMed 2020 conference. And this session is, has a topic of open science policies, open science research assessment, and before I announce our keynote speaker, please let me just remind you two things. First is our news at PubMed conference. This is PubMed Run, so don't hesitate to run 5 kilometers and send us your photos, videos, or whatever. Could be funny, and maybe you can get a free registration next year in Zadar. And the second is because of our sponsors, we could allow to offer all participants free participation without any conference fee. So please attend. We have in the afternoon a short half-an-hour sponsor session. Please attend sponsor session and just say this thank you to them. So it's my pleasure to introduce our first keynote this day. Actually, it's a fourth keynote at the PubMed conference. Marin Dacos is coming from Paris, France, and he is Open Science Advisor to the Director General for the Research and Innovation at the French Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation. Marin was really involved very much in the writing process of the French Open Science Plan, and probably this is the reason why France has, according to my opinion, one of the best national open science policy. And Marin is deeply involved in the activities of the Open Science Committee. He was also founding director of Open Edition, scholarly infrastructure dedicated to open access publication in social sciences and humanities, created a long time ago in 1999. With more than 500 journals, 6,000 books, and 2,500 academic blogs, Open Edition is considered as leading European initiative. But Open Edition has a big competitor. We have Ruđer here in Croatia, with also 500 journals. I'm joking. Marin received the prestigious Innovation Medal in 2016 from the French National Center for Scientific Research. And it's important to mention that this is second such award assigned to a researcher coming from social science and humanities. He is author of a dozen articles and 2 books about digital humanities and open science. And I really like how one moderator yesterday said, instead of saying, Marin, the floor is yours, I would say, Marin, the Zoom is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all for the invitation. I'm deeply sorry not to be able to be in Croatia, a nice country, but I have heard very good vibes coming from your PubMed event since years, so I'm very glad to be there. And I want to congratulate everybody for your commitment in open science. I am happy to participate to your movement and your ideas. So I will present the French National Open Science Plan, which I would like to present as a national contribution to an international open science vision. If I'm talking too fast, or if I am misspelling if I'm not easy to understand, do not hesitate to stop me, and I can rephrase and start again at any time of my presentation. So I would like to introduce you the National Open Science Plan, not to say that France is the place to be, but that France wants to cooperate with other countries in order to achieve this national open science vision that we share, at least at European level, but of course at worldwide level. So we are a brick of the big wall of open science, and we want to cooperate with the other countries. So this National Open Science Plan has been published in 2008 and presented at the LIBER conference by the minister herself, Frédérique Vidal. And it was an important starting point of the open science policy in France. But before, we had a law, which is called Digital Republic Law in 2016, where we had 2 articles of the law which are very important for our topics. The first one is concerning publications. The law is giving a new right for authors. So when a research is 50% publicly funded, the author retains the right to publish in the article in open repositories after 6 or 12 months after publication, whatever the publisher is saying. So it's a new right for the researchers. And for the data, the law implements a new duty for universities and research performing organizations, because this law says that open data should be the default for all publicly funded data, and the research data is considered as publicly funded data. So these 2 articles are very important. Of course, it has not changed a lot the landscape. Now we have to implement the law. We don't only a new duty is not enough to have it applied, but it's a good start. And now the Open Science Plan is a way to try to implement it. So the plan is divided in 3 parts. The first part is dealing about open access, of course. So now we have made open access mandatory for all the project when we fund it with specific money. All the research funded projects are made with an open access mandate. We have decided also to create a national open science fund. This fund is not dedicated to pay APCs, but to invest in the landscape of open publications, open publishing, and to promote what we call bibliodiversity. And we have decided also to give more money to the AL National Open Repository, which is a very important initiative, because we don't have so many local repositories for each university, but we have a national one, and some universities also have their own repository. The National Open Science Fund has the aim to support open access and to develop bibliodiversity, as I said, and the budget was starting at 3.6 million a year, with 1 million coming from the Elsevier savings, because we negotiated hardly with Elsevier, and we saved for the first year 1 million, and we gave it to the National Open Science Fund. So my joke is that Elsevier is funding the open science policy of France. And the Ministry of Research has given a lot of money, but the CNRS also, using the savings from the Springer negotiations, gave 500,000. So we published a call for project, and the results will be known at the end of the next month. A new call will be released this year. So we have also decided to rely on principles which are inspired by the principles for open scholarly infrastructures. This text is quite famous. And we have transformed them inside this document, which is the exemplarity criteria for funding from the National Open Science Fund, which means that if you don't apply, if you don't respect these principles, then you will not have money from the National Open Science Fund. The idea is that we have to stop the way we did last decades, giving up about the control of the publishing system. So concerning the policies, we have also decided that we would join the Plan S, and that we would say inside the plan, the Coalition S, which we are a member of, that we would recommend the coexistence of different roads and not only one. So we promote the green In the gold and the diamond mode, I suspect that you know well the three different roads, and we have decided not to choose between one of them, but to support all of them. So we are quite happy that as a consequence of it, the coalition has decided to start research about non-commercial publishing models, and some French people and organizations, Opera, is leading it, and we, as a Ministry of Research, has given support, political and financial support to this initiative. The same for the Plan-S rights retention, which shows that now there is a strategy to promote and to help researchers to implement open repository, open archives, and not only gold open access. So the second part of our plan is dealing with research data, because of course open science is a wide topic. We have decided to create the position of National Chief Research Data Officer. And network of, we have decided to create a network of research data officers within the research institutions. So there is somebody somewhere able to deliver a policy concerning research data and to provide help to researchers. So the plan decided to make the DMP data management plan mandatory, and to implement a certification process for our data infrastructures, and to create a simple generic data hosting and dissemination service, which is expected to be a platform like Dataverse or Zenodo or something like that at national level for data. It will be implemented in the next 2 years. And to support the Research Data Alliance, RDA, and to create the French chapter of this organization, RDA France. We have also decided to give support, financial support. When I say support, it's financial support to software heritage, the code source library, and etc. We have also run some call with some grants to help communities to upgrade their capacity to provide fair research data. And the third part of our plan is the transformation. Transformation at local, regional, national, and international level. So we have decided to promote training and online training. So I give you some examples of initiatives that we give support to. Doranum, which is initiation platform for research data. We have supported open a MOOC dedicated to reproducibility of research, and another platform dedicated to training for research data in physics and chemistry, and so on. So the plan is also asking us research performing organizations and universities as a whole to release an open science plan, each of them. So, for example, the CNRS has published its own last year. Paris-Saclay University has did that, and so on. Many more universities have published a national university-wide open science plan, or are working on it by now. So if you want to transform the scene, and if you want to transform the landscape from a closed system to an open system, we have to implement change of culture and change of skills. So we try to help the research, the young researchers, the PhD students. So yesterday we have sent out 20,000 copies of this open science passport, of course in French, to the universities to distribute them to the PhD students in France. And of course, this document is also online, and it's in open license. And if you want to reuse it to translate it into Croatian, we will publish also the InDesign files, so it will be easy to implement in different languages. The other way to implement open science in France is to have a coordinating body which is the French Open Science Committee. So it's a very high-level organization because its president, chair, is Bernard Larouturou, the Director General for Research and Innovation. And this organization is trying to coordinate all the French efforts concerning open science. So the steering committee is composed of very high-level leaders of the universities and research performing organizations in France. The Open Science Executive Board is built with some open science representatives, we call them Sherpas, from the major organizations. And we have working groups dedicated to publications, research data, skills, and European international coordination. And then we have a forum with more people discussing about how to implement open science. So the first layer of the Open Science Steering Committee does make decisions about the National Open Science Fund, the funding mechanisms, the policies and priorities. The Executive Board is coordinating institutions in order to implement the Open Science Plan. The working groups are providing recommendations, user guide, advices, best practice, etc. For example, the Open Science Passport I showed to you is a result of the working group of the Open Science Committee. And the Open Science Forum is a way to have feedbacks, new ideas, new questions about the open science coming from the research communities, because you know that sometimes we have good ideas at policy level, which are very difficult to implement because we are not close to the research habits. So we have also created an open science website, which is called ouvrirlascience.fr, and which is containing everything about open science in France. And 80% of the website is also translated in English. We have also made a cooperation with journalists, and maybe you know the Conversation, which is a website dedicated to the link from science to journalists and to the society. So we have decided to make an agreement with them, and together we publish what we can call in English good news from open science. So if the idea is not to say, yes, you should be open, you should be more open, you are too close and so on, but to explain how the open science is providing progress in science, in society, in economy, and so on. So we write, publish in French about open science good news. And of course, these documents are published in French, and we translate them all in English most of the time, and they are on CC BY. So if you want to make a cooperation with us, with the Conversation too, to implement this kind of stories, open science stories in other languages, you are welcome. We have also decided to have an open science monitor, because if you have a policy now we need to know how it is going, well or slow or fast and so on. So we created an open monitor for open science, coming from using only open data with open methodologies. The code is open, the methodology is published, and the data is also open. This is the result. And the result, the Open Science Monitor today is only devoted to evaluating how many French publications, so it's not from French publishers, but from French researchers, how many of them are open. So for the first edition, we had 41 open access from our 150,000 articles published this year. And last year, we saw a huge progress because we reached 49% open access for 2019. And this is one result of the Open Science Monitor, where you can see why we need to have an inclusive open science strategy, which means that we cannot rely only on green repositories or only on gold open access, because when we have a look to mathematics, you see that they use mostly open repositories, they are in green. And if you want to use to implement open science in social sciences, for example, or in medical research or in biology, then you see that you have to implement it not only in open repositories, but also in gold or diamond model. So I need to, okay. And now my last points will be connected to the need for international coordination. If we do that only at national level, then we will fail because we need to align with other countries' policies and to help each other to have their policies and to update them and to upgrade them and so on. So what we are doing is that we are, of course, building national open science plans in France, in Ireland, in Netherlands, in Finland, in Switzerland, and now we hope that other countries will have open science plan. And to do that, we have built the CONOSC, the Council of National Open Science Cloud, which has been created by Finland, France, and Netherlands. And the CONOSC is connecting as a network the different national open science coordinators in Europe. And we try to help each other and to implement different open science policies. And what we try to do also is to embed our policies and use into worldwide policies. So we are involved in OGP, Open Government Partnership, in the G7 Open Science Working Groups, which has met in Paris. There is a photograph of our 7 countries meeting, dealing about open science, OECD, UNESCO, and so on. We have to embed our policies in all these organizations. So my last slide will be about this. We need to help each other to utilize open science services and infrastructures, because if we only have policies but no services and no infrastructure in our hands, then we will lose control, and then we will not be able to implement open science as we hope. Thank you very much, and thank you again for your invitation.
Thank you, Marin. I especially like your last slide with this airplane and women providing services. It's really great. So at the moment we have only 2 questions for you, and both questions are from Brazil. It's 4 o'clock in the morning in the Brazil, so it's really great that someone is following PubMed sessions from Brazil at that time. And the question refers to Article 30, and actually attendee thinks that it's too soft and that this 6 months, it's an eternity in science.
I understand that, but this is not saying that we ask researchers or publishers to wait until 6 months or 12 months. But the law is saying that no publisher can stop you as a researcher, even if you have signed a contract of exclusivity for the rights. Even if you have signed that, then you have a new right. And it was very battle from the open science community and with the publishers to discuss about the duration of the embargo. The researchers asked for 0 months of embargo, of course, and the publishers asked for 48 months. So it was a huge political discussion. The discussion was very difficult. And so it's a good start. But now the new, we ask, of course, to our publishers to implement a 0 embargo policy and try to implement them. And it will be the case for all the national open science plan, open science fund, sorry, projects. They will have 0 embargo immediate open access policy, of course. I understand that. I think that people can understand also that at the parliament, there are a lot of lobbies discussing, and at the end, there is something which is in between what we expect and what is possible at the political level.
Thank you, Marin. Yes, we have another question from in questions and answers area. Marin, any thoughts on recommendations or guidelines versus requirements and mandates to push for openness and verification?
So it's about data, I think. Yeah. Probably. So it's quite difficult. So we have to think that verification or openness could be very difficult to implement if we are too hard. So if we give orders to the scholarly community, they will say, no, we don't have time, we are not interested in that, and so we have to convince them that it's possible and it's good for them. So we have, maybe you know this research showing that in biology, the articles, including data with the articles, have 25% more citations than the others. That's a good point to help researchers to understand that it's good for them to publish their data. Concerning fair good practices, it's more difficult again, because if we require the 16 steps, you know that in the FAIR principles we have 4 requisites, and each of them are divided in 4 items, so it's 16 items. If we ask for all the 16 now, just for tomorrow, then we will not be taken so seriously by the researchers, because it is too high, too difficult. So what we decided is to implement a core trust seal implementation of, so it's a certification of our repository to help them to update and go more and more to the FAIR principles. So the question is not to have a new law or a new obligation, but that the whole system is going more and more fair. It is not exactly the same thing. It's more a process than a black and white decision.
Jadranka, may I ask a question without typing it to you? Marin, you mentioned National Open Science Fund. You founded to support projects that are devoted to open science. How much money is it in compared to the overall funding of science in France and scientific projects? Is it intended only for publishing in open access journals, or is it just general support to projects that decide to go this way?
So I don't know exactly the size of the budget of research, but it's billions. Yeah. So it's a very small amount of this. So it's 2 billions.
No. Because I'm the member of French international jury for the Equipex Plus,
okay,
which are of the altitude 200+ million euro. This is just one call that is run by French Agency for Research, which is 200 to 250 million euro in one call for this year. And if you compare it, then this is the peanuts that Marin just said.
Yeah. But it's specifically dedicated to help the open science publishers or platforms. So it's only the Open Science Fund today is only dedicated to publication. And next we will have different calls dedicated to research data too. But the research program and the national infrastructures have their own specific budgets. And we hope that, as Ivan said, we hope that the Equipex Plus program will implement open science as a whole. So we gave recommendations saying to the National Agency of Research, not only to this 3 million going to the National Open Science Fund, you should have a clear view of promoting open science in Equipex Plus or in the national research infrastructures. For example, the roadmap for research infrastructures in France costs 1 billion. So this billion is 1 million a year. So we are implementing the open science plan also inside this billion, asking for all the repositories, all the data services run by these 99 research infrastructures to implement open science. So as you see, this 3 million is only a small part, but a good incentive, but not everything that we spend on research, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Jadranka, your microphone.
Thank you, Marin. The question is very short and precise. Is it possible to access Open Science Passport from Brazil, for example, in order to translate it to Portuguese and distribute it in Brazil, sorry?
Yeah. So I will give you the address of the announce of the passport. So it's online already. And you can ask to the Open Science team to have the InDesign files, because of course we will need to have not only the PDF but also the InDesign file. So I will share with you. So I don't in the chat. Is it the chat is okay? Yeah. So this is the link to the passport for the public. So you can download the PDF. But just ask to me or to my colleagues to have the InDesign file to translate it. We'll be very happy to have this.
Okay, and if there are no other questions from panelists and from attendees, I have just one question, Marin, for you. So referring to your slide with all these steps from steering committee, so on the bottom is forum, Open Science Forum, and on the top is steering committee, and you have executive. So where did you start? Or I understand that in France, situation is very different because you had a strong support your Ministry of Science and Education in these activities, which is not. So the situation in Croatia is somehow different. So what do you suggest actually where to start in Croatia to reach this and to somehow establish this structure which will be able to influence more effectively policymakers? So should we, I don't know, should we start with Open Science Forum or some bottom-up approach, or with a smaller group of people? What do you think would be a good solution for Croatia?
Okay, of course, it depends on each country's situation. So we started from the top because there was a huge political involvement of the Minister of Research herself, which called me by phone when she arrived at the ministry saying, Marin, you should join the ministry. So it's unlikely to happen in each country. So the idea is that you start where you are the stronger. So if you are stronger at the level of researchers, then you should start a forum. If you are stronger, which I suspect for your country, but I don't know a lot, at the university level, because you have a network of universities, you have a very nice platform for journals and so on. So you have already done a lot of things. At this level, then you should try to have your something like groups or even executive boards, and asking to the ministry if they can implement something higher after. So the only way to succeed in open science and in its transformation is to start where you are very strong, not to start where you are weak. So I don't know where you are weak, but forget this place, forget this level. Just start from your capacity where you are very strong. And if you have forces, people, and minds, and convinced people, even if they are very low level as researchers level, if this is the correct one, then it will depend on the countries. But what we can do as a CONUSC is to write to your minister to meet them if you are interested. We did this for Italy, for example, and we were invited by the Ministry of Research in Italy, and we went Finland, Netherlands, me, France, and Eva Mendes from the OSPP. All of us came to Rome to explain what we did, not to say the countries what they have to do, of course, but to say, okay, what we did that because of that. So you have 3 examples, very different: Finland, Netherlands, France. They are very different, but at the end they have a plan. At the end they have a governance. At the end they have a policy and so on. And you have a budget too. It's better. But even if you don't have a budget, you can do things. And so we did that. And what do you think? So the best is to be invited, because we don't have to explain. So we sent out an official invitation letter to all the countries in Europe. The diplomatic system sent out to the research ministers of research in each country if they wanted to nominate, to appoint an open science national open science coordinator, and if so, if they wanted to join CONUSC. So we can send again this letter, because we know that we have to repeat and repeat and repeat, because a lot of time the information is lost somewhere and the momentum is not the good one and so on, to invite people to appoint open science coordinator. But maybe it's not the good level to start with your country, I don't know. The best way is not to fight where you will lose. The best way is to fight where you will win.
Thank you, Marin. Thank you. So I think it's we already took some time from the next panel session, but Marin, I invite you to stay with our panelists in the next session until, I know that you need to leave at 10 o'clock for another important meeting, and I'm just inviting panel session 2 moderator to take over.
Thank you very much.